Okay, so picture this. You win the lottery, like millions. Suddenly you can have the life you've always dreamed of, but then that dream becomes a total nightmare.
Yeah.
That's kind of the story we're diving into today.
Right.
It's the unsettling true story of E.B. Roncaioli, a lottery winner whose life took a really dark turn.
It really makes you think about luck and happiness. We
Yeah.
often think of winning the lottery, like a golden ticket, a better life.
Right, exactly.
But as we'll see, sometimes it can lead to some pretty wild stuff. Like
Yeah.
in Abby's case, it even ended tragically.
Yeah, we've got a bunch of news articles about her life, her marriage, and, well, her death.
Wow.
And honestly, the details are pretty unbelievable. But before we even get into the lottery part of it all, I think it's important to understand E.B. before she became like a headline,
Yeah.
because she was already living a life full of secrets.
That's right. Before she even met her husband, Joseph Roncaioli, Evie had a son from a previous relationship.
Oh, wow.
And then, get this, even during her marriage to Joseph, she had another son that he knew nothing about.
The secret son. Okay, so there's some serious complexity here already.
For sure.
So they're living this fancy life, right? A big mansion. All the things you think of when you imagine someone winning the lottery. But it seems like behind the scenes, things weren't so perfect.
Yeah, their articles paint a pretty clear picture. Evie was struggling, alcohol, gambling, spending a lot of time, and I mean a lot of time, at those slot machines.
Makes you wonder, even before the money, was she looking for something else? Maybe the lottery win just made things worse.
It's a good point, right? Like, she was already keeping parts of herself hidden. The lottery win might have just pushed those parts further away.
Right.
Imagine it. Suddenly you've got this massive secret, this whole other life you're keeping from everyone. That kind of thing can really break down even the strongest relationships.
Definitely. And there's also the question of why she was so into gambling. Was it just to pass the time, or was there something more going on?
Yeah, some experts say that for some people, gambling is a way to deal with emotional stuff. Maybe a way to try to feel in control when your life feels out of control.
That's interesting. So maybe she was already living on the edge, so to speak, even before all the money.
It's a thought, right? And this is all before the lottery even enters the picture.
Wow. And I know we're jumping ahead a bit here, but I can't help but think, did this love of risk play a role in her decision to keep the lottery win a secret from Joseph?
That's a great question, isn't it? Keeping a win like that secret is a gamble in itself. Adding more risk and deception into the marriage, kind of like what she was doing at the casino.
So instead of a clean slate, she almost repeats those patterns from her hidden life,
Oh,
just on a much bigger scale.
exactly.
This wasn't just about the money, right? It was about the choices she made and the secrets she kept, even before that life-changing win.
Exactly. And that's really just the beginning.
Wow, I can't wait to hear more about this.
Well, stay tuned because in part 2, we'll get into the trial and some pretty shocking details.
Okay, this is going to be good.
So we've been really digging into E.B. Roncaioli's life before that big lottery win, trying to figure out why she kept it all secret from her husband, Joseph.
Right.
But, we can't talk about this case without talking about the trial, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even though we're trying to understand why Joseph did what he did, we got to remember he was charged with manslaughter.
Exactly.
And that trial was huge. Everyone was talking about
It
it.
was wild, right? So Joseph, his whole defense was that he was just trying to help Ivy. He said he injected her with those painkillers because he thought she was sick, and he wanted to figure out what was wrong.
Okay, so he's saying it was for her own good.
Right, exactly. But here's the thing. If that's true, why didn't he call for help when things got worse? Instead, he called his bookkeeper and a real estate agent. That's kind of weird, don't you think?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, if you're really worried about your wife, wouldn't you call an ambulance or something?
Right. It doesn't really add up. And the prosecution, they really jumped on that.
Oh, I bet.
They were saying that calling those financial people instead of a doctor, well, it showed what he was really thinking about.
Like he was more worried about the money than about Ivy.
Exactly. Like maybe he was already planning what to do with her money if she died.
Wow, so they're painting him as this greedy guy, possibly even planning it all out.
Yeah. And they had evidence to back it up. Remember that security footage we talked about?
Uh-huh.
The one showing Joseph acting really strange the day Ivy died?
Right.
They showed that to the jury, pointing out how weird he was acting and how much he was drinking. Definitely didn't make him look like a loving husband trying to save his wife.
No, not at all. Sometimes it's those little things, those tiny details that tell the real story.
Totally, right? Like, you can try to hide who you are, but sometimes those little slips, those moments where the real you comes out, that's what matters.
Like you can't fake it forever.
Exactly. And the prosecution, they were good. They took all those little things, all those details, and put them together to tell a story.
Like a puzzle.
Yeah. And then they brought in the experts, these toxicologists, who could tell what drugs were in IB's system.
I'm guessing that didn't help Joseph's case.
Nope, not at all. They said the amount of drugs in her system was way too much, like way more than you would give someone for pain. It wasn't just an accident, it was poisoning.
That's huge. It totally goes against what Joseph was saying, that he was just trying to help.
Right, it was a big deal. So it sounds like the prosecution was doing pretty well, but what about the defense? Did they do anything to make people doubt that Joseph was guilty?
Yeah, what was their side of the story?
Well, they basically said that it was IB's fault, that her drinking and gambling, that's what really killed her.
So instead of saying Joseph didn't do it, they said it was because of IB's lifestyle.
Right, like her choices led to this.
Did that work? Did people believe them?
The jury didn't buy it. Maybe they thought that even if IB had problems, that didn't give Joseph the right to do what he did.
I mean, she did give away millions of dollars to her sons without telling him. That had to cause some serious problems in their relationship.
Yeah, for sure. That, plus her other spending habits, probably made Joseph feel really resentful, maybe even betrayed. The prosecution said that all that anger, plus the possibility of getting all her money, that's what pushed him to poison her.
It's a crazy thought, right? This successful doctor, someone who probably thought he had everything under control, ends up doing something so terrible. It really shows you the dark side of people, how anyone can do bad things.
And you can't imagine the pressure Joseph must have been under. It must have been a roller coaster of emotions, feeling betrayed, angry, worried about money, maybe even like less of a man because of what IB was doing.
Maybe he felt like this was the only way to fix things, to get back in control, even if it meant doing something so drastic.
That's a question we can't really answer for sure, but it definitely shows you how deep this all goes. It's not just about money or jealousy, it's about broken trust, lack of connection, and what happens when people don't deal with their problems.
There's so much to think about, and we've only scratched the surface.
We've only just begun. In the last part of our deep dive, we're going to go even deeper into the minds of IB and Joseph, trying to understand why this all happened.
This is heavy stuff.
It is, but it's important.
So we've been through a lot with this case. The twists and turns of E.B. Roncalli's life, and then that crazy trial after her death.
It's a lot to take in.
It is, but I think the biggest question is still why? Why would someone kill their own wife? It's a tough question, but I think we got to try to understand it.
Absolutely. We can talk about the facts, the evidence, all that stuff, but deep down, this is a story about people.
Yeah.
It's about love, betrayal, and how messed up people can be.
And I feel like those secrets that E.B. kept, that's where it all went wrong.
Ah.
You know, that son Joseph didn't know about, that whole other life she was living with that lottery money.
Secrets can do that, can't they? They create distance, break trust, and yeah, they can ruin relationships.
Like poison.
Right, exactly. And with IB, it's like she was living multiple lives, all separate from each other.
And then, boom, she wins the lottery. And instead of bringing them closer, it pushes them further apart.
It's strange, isn't it? You'd think winning millions would make a couple happy, but for them, it just made things worse.
Like the money was a symbol of how messed up their relationship was.
Exactly. A reminder of all those secrets and lies.
Imagine being Joseph. You find out your wife won the lottery and didn't tell you, and that she has a whole other family you never knew about.
That's gotta be rough.
That's gotta hurt, right? It's not just the money, it's the lying, the feeling that everything you thought was real was a lie.
It makes you question everything.
And for Joseph, this successful doctor, a guy who's used to being in control,
Oh, yeah.
this must have been devastating. Like his world just imploded.
Absolutely. All those emotions. Anger, confusion, jealousy, maybe even feeling like he wasn't good enough.
Like everything he thought he knew about his wife was wrong.
And that she was making these big decisions, spending all this money without him.
I can see how someone could lose it,
Yeah.
But still, to go from feeling betrayed to poisoning your wife, that's a whole other level.
It is. So we gotta ask, what makes someone do that? What pushes someone that far?
Yeah. Is there like a certain type of person who would do something like that? Could we have seen this coming?
It's not that simple, unfortunately. You can't just say, oh, he was controlling, so of course he did it.
Right.
It's always more complicated than that, right? There's always more to the story.
Yeah.
For example, some experts have said that maybe being a doctor, that played a role in how Joseph saw things.
Interesting.
Not that being a doctor made him do it, but maybe it influenced how he thought about control, life and death, that kind of thing.
Like he was thinking about it all in a very logical, detached way.
Maybe, in his mind, maybe this was the only solution, the only way to fix things, to get back in control of his life and his money.
It's scary to think about, but maybe that's how his mind worked.
And let's not forget about all the societal pressures on men, you know? Joseph probably grew up with certain ideas about what a man should be, a provider, the head of the family, all that.
Right.
And what Evie did, maybe that challenged those ideas. Maybe he felt ashamed, like he had to prove himself.
Yeah, like this case is showing us the problems with how we think about men and women.
For sure. It's not just about Evie and Joseph. It's about how society shapes how we act and what we believe.
And those expectations, those unwritten rules, they can really mess up relationships.
Absolutely. It's deep, man. So this isn't just a story about a lottery win gone wrong, right? It's about how fragile relationships are, how secrets can destroy things, and how important it is to get help when things start to fall apart.
Really makes you think.
It does.
Yeah.
So here's something for everyone listening. If you won the lottery, what secrets would you be tempted to keep? And what would you do to make sure that money didn't ruin your relationships?
That's a good question, a really good question. It reminds us that even when amazing things happen, our choices, our secrets, and how we treat each other, that's what really matters.
Well said.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the dark side of lottery luck.
It's been a journey.
It has. Until next time, keep asking questions, keep exploring, and keep diving deep.